The following is a tutorial video on student academic progress and plans. You will find both of these on the student profile if you go to the academics option on the blue profile sidebar and click into that. We're going to start with academic progress. Academic progress is the new version of the AER that you're used to in self-service, the Academic Evaluation Report. When you click in here, you'll see that the first things on the top of the page are these progress donuts. What these do is they give us a ballpark estimate of how far a student is towards completing the requirements for each of their majors and for their minors as well. One thing to point out here is that we're talking about how many requirements a student has completed. You can see that this one has 34 different requirements. And that is because it's their primary major, and so the core requirements are added into that. We are talking about requirements here as opposed to courses. So one thing to keep in mind is that if a student has a requirement for their program that says something like, take 2 of the following 5 classes, that requirement will not show up as completed until the student has taken both of those 2 classes. If the student has only taken 1, it does not show up as completed. The progress donuts also do not take into account anything that's planned. So anything that's in progress, anything that's planned, those do not show up in those donuts. And that's why we say that this is a ballpark view of the progress. The next thing here is the student's cumulative GPA, and then you see unused registrations. This student says 0 for unused registrations, but for some students you will see a number there that you can click into. Unused registrations are basically courses that they've completed that don't go toward any specific requirement. So think courses that might have fallen under the additional requirements at the end of the current AER. The next thing that you'll see here is the overall academic progress. This talks about the number of hours that the student has completed as part of the 124 hours that they need in order to graduate. So you can see here that the student has 33 hours currently in progress. They have 63 hours that they've already completed, and so then a minimum of 60 courses or 60 hours that they still need to complete. In Workday, anything that shows up as blue is something that's clickable. So if I click in here, I can actually see which courses that the student is taking are being counted into these hours in progress. So you can see the different courses, and you'll also see up on the top here, this column is telling us that these are courses that are fulfilling the requirement of hours needed to graduate. If we scroll down here, the next thing we'll look at are the requirements for the student's Econ BA. The first thing that we'll see here is the student's program of study GPA. And then the next thing is a requirements effective date. That requirements effective date is essentially the student's catalog year. So this indicates that the student is doing an econ major for the catalog year of 2021. You'll also note this last evaluated section here. Workday does refresh overnight, so typically the last time a student's progress was evaluated shouldn't be more than 24 hours ago. Occasionally, you'll have a student who wants to see a more updated version of their progress. That would most commonly happen during registration. For example, if you've recommended a specific course to a student to fulfill a major requirement, and if they go to register and they're not able to do so, but they pick something else and they're really curious about whether or not that will fulfill the requirement on their academic progress, they may ask you to manually update that progress. And you can do that by going over on the side here on the blue profile sidebar to Actions. If you click into that and then you go to Advising, you'll see Launch Academic Progress Evaluation. If you move over and you click into that, it will take you to the screen to launch the progress. You'll want to go ahead and click on Confirm, and then you can click OK, and it will manually update that. And then if you click Done, it brings you right back to where you started. If we go a little bit further down here, you will see the requirements that the student needs. Once again, the Econ BA is the student's primary program, so that means that this is going to include all of the core requirements. Those core requirements are listed prior to the actual requirements for the Econ BA. And if you look down here, you can see all of these different core requirements. One note here again is that there is an Excel icon in the top corner, so this can be exported to Excel. You can also look at any one of these particular requirements, and if you hover over it, you can get more information about that requirement. So for example, if I'm curious what World Language Core 2 years means, I can hover over that and a rectangle appears. If I click into the rectangle, it will open up a pane that shows me more information, the specific wording of this eligibility rule, so that means just exactly what it takes to fulfill this particular requirement for the student. Just a note that this is also the part of a student's profile that you will go to if you need to submit an override or a waiver or a substitution. We do have a separate video about how to do those, so just plant in your brain that this is the page that you'll come to in order to do that. If a student has more than one program, an additional major or a minor, they will have separate boxes further down the screen for each of those particular programs. The next thing that we'll do is go over to the plan. This is equivalent to the timeline section on self-service. Some students will have already created plans. Some of them may not have. If you have a student who has already created a plan, you will see Update Plan here. If the student's not yet created a plan, you would still see that button in the top corner, but instead it would say Create Plan. So to interact with the plan, we're going to click onto Update Plan here, and it will take us right into the student's plan. As a reminder, the academic plan is just like the timeline in the student self-service. If your department has submitted a template to the registrar's team, those will be available for incoming students starting in fall of 2022. A template is just something that will show the students a typical path through the major, and it is flexible, so students don't have to stick to that. It just gives them suggestions and recommendations as to how to move forward with that particular major. One of the things that you'll note here is that there are 2 columns here on the plan. You see that there's both an academic requirement column and then also a course column. So you can see here, for example, that the student is planning on completing their academic requirement for Econ 343, and they're going to do that by taking Econ 343. The next line down, you can see that the student is planning to fulfill one of the requirements for their studio art major. This one's a little bit different. It gives the student the option of choosing a course from a list of 6. And so in this case, the student has chosen one particular course to fulfill that requirement. Students can have something in either the academic requirement column or the course column, or both. In order to add something to that particular semester, you can simply type the plus button. This student, just for the sake of exploration, is going to choose to take organic chemistry as an elective. So what we'll do here is we'll type in the course code, and that will give us the options here, and we'll go ahead and we'll select the organic chemistry lecture. You'll see that as soon as I do that, we get an alert. You can click onto that alert and it will tell you the problem, and here you can see it's telling us that we've planned to take a course during an academic period in which it's not typically offered. So this is a course that is not typically offered as a fall course. You can also click right into the alert here, and it will show you where the error is popping up on your plan. It'll show up as highlighted in blue. Now, when you get an alert, you can still move forward, but Workday is just letting you know that you're choosing something that is a little bit outside the parameters of what it knows about when we usually offer classes, or whatever the alert is telling you. I'm going to go ahead and click OK and register or add it to the plan anyway. And here you'll see that now we've gotten an alert and an error. This error here is showing us that we've not planned the co-requisite for this course. So organic chemistry is a lab course that does require concurrent enrollment and an OChem lab, which we haven't done. And you'll see that that same alert pops up here as well. As a note, an alert is something that it's just giving you information, and you can still move forward with an alert on your screen. If you do get something that is an error, you may not move forward until you have corrected that error. So a student would not be able to move forward without adding that co-requisite to that particular requirement. One other thing to note here is that if you want to add courses to a student's plan, you can choose a specific program or area to use to search. So if I'm the student's advisor for art, I can go in and I can click Requirement Assignment area, and it will bring up only the courses that would fulfill the student's studio art major, which can be really helpful to narrow things down during advising. This concludes our video on student academic progress and plans. We do encourage you to watch the video on substitutions, waivers, and overrides if that would be helpful.